when you were playing pro baseball. And you were living a dream that I think so many people chase, even if they don't or didn't want to ever be a pro athlete. It's that version of making it right to the big time. Talk about that time and how life circumstances kind of showed you the door to let go of what a society approved version of success is supposed to look like.
Yeah, my dream was always to be a superstar Major League Baseball player or play in the NFL like AJ Brown or NBA. And so getting drafted by the Chicago Cubs was a dream come true. But as soon as you have you're launching onto your dream, just like you on the New York Stock Exchange, there's like the fear of like, am I doing the right thing for you maybe? And then for me, it was like the fear of losing it. Like, this is my dream. I can't lose this.
Yeah.
And then I got injured and I did lose it. And I felt like I lost everything. I lost my identity. I lost my hope. I lost my life, really. And so it was a really tough time. I played minor league baseball for 5 years, in the Cubs system for 3. And it was a struggle. I had a challenge with my vision. I lost my dynamic visual acuity. So I was no longer able to track the moving object coming at me at 90 plus miles an hour. And so, it's hard to hit a baseball like that. And so my career was over. And then I got asked to coach a high school baseball team in inner city Seattle. I was driving a truck for FedEx and had no interest in coaching, never coached before, never thought about it. And then we went undefeated and I had a great time. So then the question was, how do I go from coaching 15, 16-year-olds to coaching in the major leagues and, for the Yankees and winning the World Series? So I go to grad school and my plan was to get a master's in phys ed so I can get a job teaching PE to pay the bills, coach the high school team, win a championship, and then get a job in university, do the same thing. And then in grad school, I met this guy as a personal trainer. I was a personal trainer to pay for school. And because after university, I was going to get a job in the pros and, make my way up to the big leagues. And he said, let's go for a job right out of grad school with the major league team by getting to know the people that can hire you. So I sent a snail mail letter to every major league GM and field manager. And I said, I'm doing my master's on how to build a championship team, and I'd like to interview you in person. And so I sent out 60 letters, one to every team, 2 to every team. And then I got a job with the Texas Rangers 2 weeks after graduation.
Wow. I like that hustle. And I like that focus. Yeah. And so take us on from there. What was that job like?
Yeah, and I think that's something that anyone can do. And I never would have done that had I not had a coach saying, Jim, you can do this. Because I was like, who's going to talk to me? I'm nobody. And he said, no, they will. You got to believe. And one thing that he told me that was really helpful, he said, you have to realize that it's going to take on average 12 rejections to get through. And that number just really helped me. Yes. I was like, okay, 1 or 2 rejections is not going to slow me down.
Right.
And so anyone can do that. If you have a dream, like you can talk to someone who's a leader in your field, and all you need is one, because he'll introduce you or she'll introduce you to the next person and she'll introduce you to the next. And that's what happened to me. And so I ended up interviewing 39 major league managers and GMs and coaches. And then I get a job with the Texas Rangers 2 weeks after graduation. So we skipped the high school and college route.
Wow.
And so it was a dream come true. Now I've got an identity again. I'm Jim Murphy somebody. Jim Murphy pro baseball player was somebody. And then I lose it. I'm Jim Murphy nobody in my mind. And now, okay, I'm Jim Murphy somebody again. I've got this identity. And then it wasn't a good fit. I leave halfway through the season in tears.
How come?
It just pro baseball, minor league baseball. There's a lot of egos, and with not just players but with coaches, and 2 coaches almost got in a fist fight in front of me because one of the coaches talked to one of the other coaches' players, and I guess he didn't like that, and I just was not really allowed to coach. They said, we just want you to kind of watch and listen and not say anything. And I just wasn't really ready for that. And there's so many things and I thought I was a total failure.
Yeah.
Because I thought this is the best possible life and I'm going to live it. And I always thought I'm destined for something great. And I thought it was going to be a superstar. And I always think of it as, I'm going to make millions of dollars. I'm going to be on the cover of magazines, hitting home runs or catching touchdowns in the Super Bowl. And every guy's going to want to be me. Every girl's going to want to be with me. It's going to be the best possible life, and I'm going to live it. And then I'm kind of on my way, and I get drafted by the Cubs. And then it was just a real struggle with my vision, and I really struggled for 5 years. And then I lose it. So then I kind of lose everything in my mind. And then I get the job at the Texas Rangers, and I'm like, okay, I'm back on my path. Jim Murphy pro baseball player is actually supposed to be Jim Murphy pro baseball coach. That's the destiny. Okay, now we've got this new track. And then I lose that.
Yes.
And then I'm like, oh, now I'm nobody again.
Yes.
And just as lost as I was before.
Yeah.
And then, so I go back to my parents' house, and I'm like, I don't know, 30 years old. And
You're probably, let me interrupt for a moment. Are you having those conversations like WTF, maybe friends, colleagues, you know what I mean? They're moving on, having like real life happening, gaining success. And here you are failing once again.
Yeah. In fact, I, at one point I thought about becoming a firefighter.
Yeah.
And it's exactly what you're saying. So many of my, peers, they have good jobs, and they're buying houses and having kids. And I've got no money. I was a graduate student and then a minor league baseball player. It's like the poorest person there is. And so, yeah, I was really like this missing out. I'm like, what am I doing with my life? And so it was tough.
And is that when you decided to go to the desert? Because one of the other things I loved in your book and in your story, not only you going to the desert, so we can talk about that, but also about your great grandfather. And it feels like there was some legacy in there who also lost everything when the system that he was in collapsed. If you can tie those two together, that would be great.
Yeah, for sure. So what happened after I go back to live with my parents, I get a call from Major League Baseball and said, would you like to coach South Africa and be their hitting coach for their Olympic trials? So I fly to South Africa. Now I thought they were calling me. I was wondering, are they calling me because I would be based in Johannesburg, which at the time was one of the most dangerous cities in the world. And so I thought, are they calling me because everyone else said no? But I went, and it was an extraordinary experience. I had full control over the hitters, and just the opposite of with Texas. And I'd never seen real poverty before. And our bat boy was living in the tool shed of our baseball field with his mother and little brother. And his name was Gift Ngupe, and he actually went on to play in the big leagues. And it's an incredible story if you Google Gift Ngupe. It was with the Pirates. And so that experience with South Africa, the Olympic trials, was so amazing. We swept the Olympic trials. We went on to the Olympics. I got to meet Nelson Mandela, march in opening ceremonies. We had one of the biggest upset victories in Olympic baseball history. The experience with the Olympics was extraordinary. And then after the Olympics, what am I going to do with my life now? So I'd kind of burned the bridge with pro baseball, leaving in the middle of the season, and what am I going to do next? And then, so I went back to being a personal trainer. And then about 3 years later, my girlfriend at the time was like, Jim, what are you doing with your life? I know you're restless. And about the same time, I get a call from my former teammate in pro baseball, and his name was Ricky. And he said, I'm building a baseball academy in Tucson, Arizona. Can you come down and help me launch it? So I ended up going there. I said, what if I move down there and help you part-time? And I went there to go live a life of solitude. And so I realized that I really needed to make I was kind of like, what am I doing with my life? And I always had this vision. And I think this is something that everyone can really, should really grasp, is that there's so much more possible for you than you can see. There's no way you can see what's possible in your life. You haven't met the people that you're gonna meet, and you don't know what God knows. And so don't limit yourself to your past, which is what I've done most of my life, and what most people do is they look at their past and they try and say, what can I go from here? Yeah. And that's a big mistake. I realized that if I stay in Vancouver, BC, where I was living, everyone was going to tell me, you've got a great life, Jim, your clients love you and it's great. Why would you leave? And I realized I can't afford to have people think about me and hold me back. Like, they're going to think about my past, and I need to go get away from everything. So that's why I went to the desert, to live this life of solitude. And it was fairly unique, I guess. I mean, I gave away over half my possessions, including my TV, at a time when TV was kind of where you watched everything. And one of my first New Year's, because I wasn't really dating and I wasn't socializing, and I just wanted to figure out my life. And one of my first New Year's, I hear a noise. I'm in my house alone, and I go outside and I see fireworks. And that's when I knew it was New Year's Eve. I had no idea what day it was. And so I was like, whoa, oh my gosh, it's New Year's Eve. And so, like, what am I doing here? It's so crazy. And everyone's back home having fun, and I'm by myself in this empty house. And so it It was lonely and maybe a little crazy. But what came from that is I decided that I wanted to be a personal coach to pro baseball players and teach them how to have peace and confidence under pressure. My first 2 clients did amazing. And so I thought I'm going to put together a little manual for future clients on how to do this. And so I had all that experience interviewing Major League Baseball managers and GMs. And so I decided to call a sports psychologist and ask him, how can an Olympic athlete train for 4 years for an event that may last less than a minute and have peace and confidence with so much out of your control? And similarly, how can a Major League Baseball player, Game 7 of the World Series, bottom of the ninth, 2 outs, full count, bases loaded, down by 1, how can that guy have peace and confidence? And it just brought a lot more questions than answers. So I call another psychologist, and I call another and another, and I spent 5 years full-time, like 50, 60 hours a week, 5 years straight, writing this book. And I didn't set out to write the book. I set out to take 2 or 3 weeks to put together a manual for my clients. And then it just started getting more and more. And then I decided to turn it into a book.
Yeah.
And so that's how that kind of came.
I love that you wrote, there was one insight that changed everything for you. And that it was the same insight that you realized up until that point you've been playing the wrong game, but didn't know it. And so you wrote, the pursuit of extraordinary performance and the pursuit of the best possible life are the same. What does that mean? Because I think for many of us, when we think about the notion of high performance, whether it's in the context of the Olympics or pro sports, or even as an executive or a CEO, or, any level where you're like, I'm going to be the best, you know what I mean? I'm going to kick everyone's ass and I'm going to be number one. And then you think about, I want to live a joyful, contented, meaningful, engaged life. Those two things somehow, for most of us, at least for me, can seem at odds. Right? Like one's this hyper aggressive type A, win at all cost kind of ethos or mentality, where the other could be somewhat passive and meditative and go with the flow. Mm-hmm. So tell me about that insight. Cause it was one of the first times I was like, interesting, which made me want to keep reading more.
Yeah, it was a very big realization when I was in the desert. So kind of the way it worked out was, I realized that first, the book was just really, I want to put together a manual on mental toughness, and I wanted to make it the best in the world. And there was no thoughts of peace and joy or anything like that. It's just poise under pressure, mental toughness. That's all I set out to figure out.
Yeah.
And then, so one thing that happened was I realized, because I wanted to find something that I could devote my life to, that I was willing to live and die for. And I realized that if I spend all my time devoting my life to helping someone win a gold medal or be world number one, and they're not even peaceful, doesn't give me any joy, or they're just bitter or anything like that, like, what did I do? Was it even a good thing?
Right.
And I realized, like, that's not really something great to devote yourself. It's like I talked to a coach one time, and she said she's really good at helping people advance in their careers. And I said, that's amazing. What if you help them advance in their career to something that they're really, really good at, but it gives them incredible anxiety and it doesn't really enhance their inner world? Like, is that a good thing you did for them? Now they're making millions of dollars, and yet they didn't become a better person and they don't have more peace and joy. And so I started to think about that, and I realized that I didn't want to help someone become really successful if it didn't really impact the world in a positive way. And then that's when the realization came to me, and God shared it with me. It was just so powerful for me. It really changed the focus of my life.
Yeah.
Was like what you said, is that the path to having the most poise and confidence under the most pressure. And there's so many people that have more pressure than pro athletes, like, because pro athletes, they have an off season, they have coaches, massage therapists, and the average person does not have that.
Yeah.
And so the path to having the most peace and confidence under the most pressure is the same path as having the best possible life. And the best possible life I define as having a life filled with deep contentment, joy, and confidence, or a life filled with love and joy and peace and patience and goodness and faithfulness and self-control. That's the best possible life. Because why does anyone want to be like, have the superstardom of Marie Forleo, or be a CEO, or be AJ Brown? Why does anyone want that? It's not because they want to take $1 million and put it in their bathtub and roll around in the paper. It's because they think they're going to buy a nice house with it. And in that house, they're going to have dinner parties. And in those dinner parties, people are going to have this great time and you're going to feel really good. Or you're going to fly to Europe, or you're going to fly to America and you're going to feel really great and you have these great experiences. That's why they want this success. And so Inner Excellence says, hey, let's go for that directly. Let's go for training your inner world, which is your heart and subconscious working together. That is running your life. So let's get your heart in a place where you can have this inner strength where no matter, there's so much craziness in the world right now and so much fear and things out of our control, that you can go out into the world in strength if your inner world has that inner peace and inner strength. And similarly, it doesn't matter how many millions of followers you have, how much money you have. If your inner world is in turmoil and filled with anxiety, you go out into the world in weakness. And it doesn't matter how many people are worshiping you or saying you're the greatest. Totally. That's your life. And so my message is I want people to know that there's a better way to live, and you don't have to get caught up in your circumstances. And if you have a purpose beyond yourself, and if you learn that selfless is fearless, that fear comes from focusing on myself and what's going to happen to me. And love is the antidote, because there's no fear in love. And if you have a purpose in your life that can make the world a better place, even if you're not very good at it, it doesn't matter your skills at it. It's if you focus on that purpose every day, then you can develop that inner strength and that peace and joy.
Yeah, I loved that. And I loved in the book, the biggest obstacle we face in performance and life is self-centeredness. So let's talk about how that preoccupation with self, because I've seen that and I've talked about it in my own way. People will often ask me like, hey, Marie, you seem so natural on camera or anything like that. Or if I'm on a stage, and, that doesn't mean I get so filled with anxiety, and all the different things before that. I said, but the one thing that usually helps me if I take the attention off of me and I'm just completely about whether it is what I'm there to share or connecting or playing or somehow emotionally having that tissue connectivity and joy be emitted. And I loved that you wrote how self-obsession, not your words, but self-centeredness and preoccupation with ourselves narrows our vision, and it replaces curiosity and excitement with fear and anxiety. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between like self-centeredness and self-awareness, just to give us those nuances? Absolutely.
It's important to know that self-centeredness is the default way of living. And it's not, I'm not saying that everybody is selfish, like in a negative way. In fact, when you're afraid of what people think of you, that's what I'm saying is self-centeredness. It's like you can have a really compassionate heart and be concerned about others, and like, I hope everyone's going to be okay, and that can be very self-centered, because it's this, whenever you're thinking about what will people think about me, or even it can even get into, well, how will if I do this, what's going to happen to them? Yeah. And this focus on self can create a lot of anxiety. And so if you think about the best times when, whether you're on the trading floor or AJ Brown is on the football field, or anyone is performing, when they're at their best, in my experience in the last several decades, is that there's very few thoughts and very few thoughts of self. In fact, the best performance is there's no thoughts of self. It's completely selfless. So when we're performing our best, it's this vibe that there's really no past and future. You're totally caught in the moment. It's like great art. Like, this is a beautiful art studio. It kind of feels like that. And so when you see great art, what happens to the viewer? The viewer is not thinking about themselves, right? Whether it's a book, a movie,
a dance.
Yeah, there's no thoughts of self. You're not even thinking about the artist. You're just caught up in the moment, right? And that's what's possible for all of us, is to get more caught up in that moment. And what takes it away is way too many thoughts from way too many concerns. That's what anxiety is. And so what we need to do is we need to narrow it all down. The only way you're going to have way less thoughts, which is less anxiety, is you have to narrow your life down to one guiding purpose. And it's got to be a purpose beyond yourself. Because if it's just, I want to be world number one, or I want to be a CEO, that's just a goal. And that's great. Goals are great. But a purpose is something that you can do independent of circumstances. Like, even if you're in prison, you could live this way. So my purpose is to share God's love, wisdom, and courage with athletes and leaders around the world, but with everybody. And so narrowing your life down to that one purpose can really be the path of love that makes you fearless.
Let's talk about affluenza and that virus. I thought it was so wonderful, like that whole section in the book. Why is it so dangerous? Like, what is it? And how does affluenza kind of relate to the power of setting, and achieving goals in business, sports, and life? Because I think those two can coexist. And I'm so curious to hear your perspective on it.
Yeah, so affluenza, this virus that I talk about in the book, is there's 5 aspects to it. There's the possessions, achievements, looks, money, and status.
Yes.
And so it's really one of the biggest challenges that we face in this culture that's obsessed about these things. And kind of the epicenter of that is our phone. And so what's interesting, last couple of weeks, I wrote in my journal, what is God telling me right now? And the first answer was, your phone is, it's dictating your imagination.
Ooh.
Not in a good way. And so a week later, last week, what is God telling you right now? And it said, I wrote in the journal, it said, my phone is tumbling my heart. It's like gripped my heart, and it's like, it's got control. And I was like, because that's what I was feeling. It's like my phone is really, I've been kind of addicted to it, even though my kind of strategy on my phone is maybe a little bit unique than other people. The ringer's always off. I don't get any notifications except for texts. So if someone calls.
Me too, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah. My brother just this morning, he's like, I can't ever get in touch with you. I was like, it's by design, not for, not to be, well, I am very sassy. Let's just be real. But it's the same thing, because I found I'm so susceptible to it. Like, I actually, just to be, I reached out to you on Instagram, and it was like a commando mission. And my team knows this because I don't interact. You know what I mean? Like, I use it as a tool, just like if we were in a different time, I would have sent you a mailed letter. Mm-hmm. But I was so excited. I was like, I feel like Jim should be on our show. And I was like, let me just go, you know what I mean? Ask him. But that was the only reason I was in there. I actually spend no time on social for this exact reason. Yeah,
that's so important. And I realized that that's really something that if you want to have this life where you're really focused, like I went to the desert to really get away from distractions.
Yeah.
And
but
the phone is the biggest challenge.
Yeah. And the affluenza virus, just that. And I love, by the way, that prompt. Will you say it one more time? Like, when you journal, what is God telling me right now?
Yeah. What is God telling me right now?
What is God telling me right now? I love that. I have a dear friend. I don't know if you're familiar, Elizabeth Gilbert. So she's a very famous magical human being and best-selling author and writer. And she has this whole practice, which is around different, but just asking, what does love want me to know? And I'm paraphrasing that, but it's so interesting because that prompt, I feel like there's a response, like there's a clear message that comes through. Yes. And so I love it. So thank you for saying that. Back to affluenza. So possessions, achievement, looks, money, status. You were recognizing that the phone was a source of your heart kind of tumbling. Keep going.
Right. Yeah. And so I realized, and that's just the last couple of weeks, I realized I need to make it in fact, I just ordered a phone that has internet, but only apps that don't scroll.
Yeah.
And so, the owner just called me last night.
Which one is that? Is that the
Sleek? It's SLEKE.
Oh, that's a new one. Because I remember there was one a few years ago that was almost like a beautiful, and I call it dumb phone. I'm using like little bunny ears for all those listening on the podcast, just because it was devoid. It's like you could tell time. You could make phone calls. I think you could listen to maybe music, but you could not do a bunch of other things. Yeah,
I think if you want to live an extraordinary life, you have to really... and one of the things that I told my friend is that it wasn't a lack of discipline that I was getting. The phone it was a lack of it was my heart that was the issue. It's easy to think that I just need to be more disciplined, and obviously I think we've all thought that I just need to be more disciplined. And I realized that, well, yes, that's the case, but what's the solution? The solution is not trying harder. The solution is my heart. It's like, because I realize that for most of us, if you really make it your top priority, you can do whatever you want. You're going to go to the gym at 5 a.m. or whatever it is, if it's your top priority.
Yes.
If it's not, you may not, right? But if you really set your heart, and so that's what I realized is like, I need to make my priority that I'm not going to get, so with the phones, it's making everybody like everyone else. We're kind of becoming homogenized. We're like, you kind of see more and more of what you've been seeing, and then you're becoming, you have less creative thoughts and less able to make a positive impact on the world. And like, I first got this from Tim Ferriss, 4-Hour Work Week, which is the low information diet.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I want to be ignorant of most things so I can really be wise about a few things, like things that are eternal, things that are important, that are really going to be helpful and powerful.
So if you step out, if we are willing to see for ourselves and go, oh, where might I have the affluenza virus, meaning I'm making all of these things primary: possessions, achievement, looks, money, status, which we know are also very temporary. You know, anyone who's been on the planet for a few decades, you start to see all those things. You may have them temporarily, but they're not going to be around forever. What I want to go back to is, how does this also square with the power of setting goals and achieving real things in life? Because I do think there's value in that, of having something to reach for that's outside of perhaps your current capabilities. I know it's been useful for me. I'm just curious of your perspective on that, because especially I think in sports or being an Olympian or being a CEO, it's like, okay, great. How can we set this? And for me, I try and do it in the context of a game, meaning like, how can I play this game and go for this game, but not be attached?
Yes, exactly.
Do you know what I mean? I'd love to reach it, and it would be awesome. And I can like bring all of my fire and my strength and my energy and my creativity. But if I don't reach it, it doesn't mean I am a failure.
So here's a question for you, Marie.
Yeah.
How many times do you know 100% for sure that this goal that you have is the absolute best thing for you?
I do not always. Maybe like, and this is just rough off the moment, maybe like 1 out of 10.
Yeah, exactly.
Something like that.
Yeah, I think that's so important for people to know.
Yes.
Is that we all have our goals, but do we know for sure it's the best thing for us? Like, it's Masters is coming up, right?
Yeah.
In fact, I think it might have started today. And so is it the best thing for anyone of them to win? Well, it's their dream, their goal, right?
Yes,
but is the best thing for them? We don't know. The caddy, is it the best thing for you, for your player to win? You don't know. In fact, a good friend of mine, Teddy Scott's there right now. Good luck, Teddy, but we don't know if it's the best thing for you. But that gives you, also Brandon's there, another great caddy. That gives you freedom. If you have this big goal and dream, but you don't even know if it's the best thing for you. So you can let go of it a little bit, like you said. I want to share with you a model that I shared, that I share with all my clients. And it's called the 3 worlds model. It kind of helps you think about this.
Yeah.
And so we live in 3 worlds simultaneously. So there's the third world, which is all of your results and circumstances. It's the world that most of us have obsessed about. My whole life I've obsessed about it. I want to be a superstar, and like I told you about. And that's been the majority of my life, obsession about this third world. And the thing about the third world of results and circumstances, it's all in the past and future. It's always changing. It's very unstable. And it's the world of the ego and instability. It's the world we have the least control over.
Yeah.
And then there's the second world, which is your inner world, and all of your thoughts and feelings and decisions and actions that follow. And so world 2, your inner world and all of your actions. And so I first thought of this. So I got a call back when Inner Excellence first came out from Tiger Woods' coach. And he said, Sean Foley, and he said, I read Inner Excellence. Can you talk to one of my clients? And so I fly out to California. I meet with, his name was Hunter Mahan and Sean, and start to talk to them. I was like, how can I explain to them in just a few minutes what Inner Excellence is all about? And so this model is what came to me. And so I've been using it ever since. And so we have a third world of results and circumstances that easily get attached to. Second world is your inner world and all of your actions that follow. And then there's the first world. The first world is the unseen world that controls the third world. Mm-hmm. It's the world of unlimited possibilities, limited only by imagination and belief. It's the world of inner strength and mental toughness and love and joy and everything that's eternal. And so as I was sharing this to Tiger's coach and to Hunter, a pro golfer, when they're on the course, they're in world 2, your inner world and all of your actions. So when you're performing, you're in world 2. So what happens to most pro golfers and to most of us is, where's our mind? It's in the past and future, the results and circumstances, world 3. But if we want to be our best, like we talked about earlier, we need to be fully engaged in the moment, heart, mind, and body, fully in this moment. No thoughts of self and no thoughts of past or future. That's the ideal. And so, but most pro athletes and most of us spend most of our time when we're in the second world performing or just living and doing our 9 to 5, and our heart and mind is in world 3. And then world 1 we ignore. And so it's the opposite of how it should be. So we should have, the ideal is 90% of your thought life is 1, 2, world 1 and world 2.
Yeah.
And 10% in the world of results and circumstances, 2, 3. But most people fall into this, what I call the 3-2 trap. And so we're in world 2 as a golfer, but they're thinking about world 3. That putt they just missed or that tough hole that they got coming up, and they're not as good as they could be. And so have you ever been in world 2 when you're thinking about the past and the future? And
oh yeah, absolutely. And I think some of my best work, whether it is creating content, when I launched my book, we did an entire concert where I performed on stage and there was talking and singing and dancing and all of this stuff.
You're talking about everything is figure outable?
I am. It was like, cause I was one of the world's first Nike Elite dance athletes, which was a whole thing that we did. So yeah, thank you. But my greatest joy is always come when I can let go of that world 3 and not thinking about the results. And I feel like I love that framework of like 10% of the time. It's like checking into that world for me would mean like, okay, let's see how we did. Let's see what the feedback is. Let's see what we can learn. What are the results? And I feel like, you've talked a lot about in your book, presuppositions. And I wrote one of these down. I'm going to bounce around all of my notes here. Is all things are here to teach me and help me. It's all working for my good.
Yes.
Whenever
that's a big one.
My mind has gotten caught up in world 3 or looking at results or circumstances that, first of all, they're done, they're complete. It's now in the past. There's nothing else I can do about, whether we hit certain numbers in the business or an external circumstance with my family that is completely out of my control. You know what I mean? Different circumstances in life. I think that presupposition, and this is one of them, is one of my favorite highlights from the book that top performers have about circumstances they cannot control. And I think this relates to world 3 is all things are here to teach me and help me. It's all working for my good. And then your second one that I highlighted was the problem is not the problem. The problem is the way you're thinking about it. Two really good ones.
Yeah. So that first one is one definitely I think about every day. And I want my clients and anyone that reads the book to think about every day.
Yeah.
Because, it's a completely different way of living.
Yeah.
If everything is here to teach you and help you, every person you encounter, that difficult coworker or that person that was lying or that relative, anyone, they're, and not only that, and this is principle number 2, everyone does the best they can with what they have in their heart at all times. And so I'll get back to that because that's a big one. I know there's going to be people who are like, whoa, not Billy, not Susie. I know for sure they could be doing better. And so I totally get that. But the first principle that you mentioned, this presupposition that everything is here to teach me and help me, it's all working for my good. So first of all, the number one goal in inner excellence every day is to learn and grow.
Yeah.
And like I shared earlier, you don't know this thing that you think could be the life-changing, the best thing for you. You don't know if it's the best thing for you. And so even if all the third world circumstances look like it is, you don't have all the information. And the best thing for you long-term may be to gain more patience, maybe to gain more inner strength, much better than having something that you want. And it's not how I would draw up the world. I mean, if I drew it up, because the best possible life has 1 foot in joy and 1 foot in suffering. That's not how I would have drawn it up. I'm just saying that's how the universe is.
Yeah.
I would have drawn it up 1 foot in joy, 1 foot in joy. But I'm not God, so I didn't do it. So,
No, I like that. So let's talk about, I love that the 3 pillars of inner excellence, love, wisdom, and courage. I found myself walking around New York City, like repeating those. It's like, I love mantras. I have someone who has a brain that goes in many different directions a lot of the time. So mantras and little things that I can repeat are very, very helpful for my ability to focus and reground. And there's also 3 great questions that you have that help reveal what is most important to us in the deepest part of our hearts. I thought that was wonderful. And it relates a little bit back to our affluenza, virus conversation. What do I dream about? What do I worry about? What regularly makes me anxious? And what do I get upset about? What makes me the angriest? I thought those questions were so fun and insightful, just as a self-check, right? To see what at this moment in time, like what paradigm are you living in? What are you prioritizing? What are you making the most important?
Yeah, for sure. Because like I shared earlier, what's running your life is your heart and your subconscious working together. Your heart, when I say heart, I mean your spirit or your will. Yeah. And so it's the deepest part of you, where your greatest fears are and your greatest dreams are. And so that's what we want to work on. And so if you want to know where your heart is, because when you're squeezed, when you're under pressure, what's in your heart's going to come out.
Yeah.
And don't tell anybody this, but one time I was squeezed and an F-bomb came out. Yeah. Like, don't tell.
Jim.
Like, yeah.
My goodness.
It doesn't
we
happen.
haven't been friends long enough because they pop out of my mouth all the time. So go ahead.
So, I mean, it doesn't happen often, but it has happened in my life. And I was like, whoa. Whenever that does happen, I'm like, okay, that was in my heart. And even if I didn't do something, but I would have, I'm like, okay, what's in your heart? Because if I didn't do it, but I would have, then that means next time I might. Like, it's in your heart. And so whenever you're squeezed, you're going to find out what's in your heart. So if your life is going good and you're nice to people and happy and whatever, it could be just your third world circumstances are pretty good. Yeah. It could be this false peace. So we don't really know who you are until we get under pressure. Then we know what's in your heart. And because we want to know what's in your heart, because then if you don't know what's in your heart, then you could be really, really unstable and get, like you feel like you got hit by a freight train. So in order to avoid those hit like a freight train moments, we need to train the heart. And that heart, the way we know where your heart is by those three questions that you just so wisely asked.
Yeah. So, another one of my favorite highlights was the Fearless 4. And I actually wrote those down. This is what I said to you on Instagram. So I have a little card where I look at my goals every morning and I write them. And then I made this 5 daily process goals. Yours are 4. I just added on a bonus because it was personal for myself. So number 1, give my best 100% of what I have today. Number 2, be present. Number 3, be grateful. And number 4, focus on routines and only what I can control. So I want to break down that first part, give 100% of what I have today, because I think that this is so important. My audience is filled with super ambitious, type A kind of humans who are usually doing a lot. And while it's certainly not the total breakdown, I would say about 70% female and have kids and the family and the business, responsibility is kind of out the wazoo. And I wanted to really dig into the nuance of this because you explain it in the book so well. It's 100% of what I have today. So if you're injured or if you're in what I call in the trenches in life, meaning you're either have a diagnosis or there's a death or grief or you've lost your job, it's like life has just kind of you got a punch in the gut and everything has shifted really fast. Let's talk about that give 100%. Like if you only got 40% today, it's not about pushing yourself to 120 or being a superhero, right? Can you break that down?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think of my friends Matt and Gina who have 10 kids and just think of like you're sick and then you're the mom and then you've got 4 of them that are sick and then and then some of them are not completely the perfect angels that they are every day and one day they're not and then life's like, man, how does she do it?
Yes.
And so giving 100% of what you got is so important because it's to realize you're either going to show up feeling your best or your worst or somewhere in the middle. And 90% of the time it's going to be in the middle. And some of those times, a lot of those times, it's going to be on the left side of your, in the middle of towards your worst. It might be 40%. And so if you don't realize that that's where you're at, then it could be really, really, it's like being depressed about being depressed. So say if you have, if your third world circumstances are really tough and then you get depressed about it, and then you're depressed about being depressed, that doubles it. And so it's so important to realize when you show up to kind of check in each day. It's like, what do I have today? And then if you're married, share that with your spouse. I've only got 40% today. Yeah. And then, and realize that I'm going to give 100% of that 40. And then you can have a good day. It's just so much harder if you don't realize that, because then the standards can be unrealistic, and then you're going to get really frustrated, and then anxiety will come in.
Yeah. And I feel like it's that whole downward spiral. If you don't have any grace for yourself for where you are, or consistently setting the bar, and I've certainly done this in my past, so unbelievably high that there's no room for error. And then the mental anguish of beating myself up. What's wrong with me? Like, my friends know one of my trigger words, like if I'm in a bad space, you know what I mean? If I'm like not at my best, I call myself weak. They're like, oh, you just used the W. I'm like, I feel so weak. And they're like, you're not weak, you're human. So I loved this conversation. I write it down and I look at it every day, because it reminds me to bring that level of self-compassion and self-awareness to, well, what does giving 100% of my best look like today? Not the idealized version of who I think I should be, but, the kind of alignment with reality with what I got.
Exactly.
Yeah. So walk me through, like, what's your own daily mental training practice look like right now? And because I know it's like, everything in this book is so beautiful. It's so fun. It's so grounded. I love how much it's connected to the heart. And I know you've also probably, or I would imagine, just with the recent Super Bowl and like, when something blows up, that's a lot of energy. It's a lot of attention. It's a lot of new voices in your, it's just life kind of starts to take on a different tempo and temperature, and there's so much more to manage. So how has it been for you lately?
Yeah, it's been crazy.
Yeah.
My life is very, very different now. From January 12th is when AJ Brown was.
Where were you were you just like, holy shit? Like, where were you watching it? Did you see it happen?
Yes, but I didn't use that word.
I'm so sorry. That's me. That's Jersey Marie.
I was kidding. So I was in a hotel room in Dallas, Texas, and I'm watching actually Penn State play Notre Dame in a bowl game, which had already happened, but I hadn't seen it yet. So I'm watching that game, and then meanwhile, AJ Brown and the Eagles are playing the Packers in the playoffs, and then I look at my phone and my mom they told her she only had a few weeks to live, and she had a great life. And so she, like you mentioned earlier, her relatives and grandfather, so she ended up dying 4 days later, January 16th. Actually, it was.
I'm so sorry for your loss.
Thank you. It was more joy than sorrow, because now she's much better. But when I found out, it was January 16th, 4 days after this all went down. But January 12th was a very interesting day. I hadn't paid off my credit cards in January. The first time in years that I was like, oh, I don't have enough money to pay off my credit cards this month. And life was kind of slow. Business was kind of slow. And my mom was dying. And so I'm walking around downtown Dallas, kind of lonely, in a Sunday afternoon. And I look up at this skyscraper, and I just written a book called The Best Possible Life, How to Live with Deep Contentment, Joy, and Confidence No Matter What. It's about the spiritual life, the Christian life. And I look up at this skyscraper, and I think this thought. Now I realize it was God asking me, but at the time I had no idea. And the thought was, Jim, would you rather own that building outright, no mortgage, for whatever hundreds of millions of dollars it's worth, or would you rather have understood and written that book, The Best Possible Life? And I thought, actually, I'd rather just have written and understood the book. I'd take that over the money. And then a few hours later, my life completely changed. I'm looking at I'm watching the game. I look at my phone. I see a whole bunch of messages. And actually, I thought my mom died. Oh. And so I was like, oh, what's all the messages?
Yeah.
And then I see, like, you need to watch this game. And I was like, whoa. And then, Tom Brady's talking about it, and Kevin Burkhardt, et cetera. And then, everything exploded from there.
Yes.
So the book had sold, it first came out in 2009 with McGraw-Hill. And then I took over the rights to it sometime maybe 10 years later. And then I republished it, self-published in 2020. And that's the book AJ Brown's been reading. And so in January, for example, it had sold maybe 2 or 3 a day. So I don't know, 20 or 25 total in January. Yeah. And so that week it sold around 100,000.
Yes, I was one of them. Woo! And it's awesome. You know, it's so fun. So my first book, not everything is figureoutable, but my very first book, I originally self-published. Then I sold it to McGraw-Hill.
Oh, interesting.
Isn't that hilarious?
Yeah.
But this is exciting. So now this is like have you redone the innards of the book since January? Like, did you rewrite anything, or are we just republishing now?
It's pretty much the same.
It's pretty much the same. Yes. Yeah.
We got awesome. A new little top.
Just something called the #1 New York Times bestseller. Congratulations. That's fun. That's super fun.
Yeah. That's going to be launched April 29th.
Beautiful. Yeah. So that day changed everything. So that was like, so yeah, walk me through what happened. And then your mental practices where you're like, oh
yes,
God, yes.
Okay. So we're going to get to that. So that day was interesting. So it's kind of lonely. My life changes 3 hours later. And then the next day it was mayhem. Like the emails, text messages, everything coming at me so fast. I was doing interviews like every half hour the next 2 days.
Wow.
It sold, I think 43,000 books in 2 days.
Nice.
And then it was really chaotic and incredible. But what was interesting, I was going to tell you about that story was, so I didn't have a lot of money at that time. Like business was kind of slow, wasn't able to pay off the credit cards. And then I'm in Philadelphia. I actually went to the game the next week, the snow game against the Rams. And it was amazing. And so, but I'm in Philadelphia, and this guy on the street asked me for money. And I looked at my wallet, I had no money. So I run to the bank and to get money out, and I try to take out $300, and it says insufficient funds, 200 insufficient funds, and 100 gives me the money. I find the guy, I give him some money, and then a few days later, my mortgage payment bounces, and I've got a negative balance. My checking account is overdrawn, and so this hadn't happened in years. That week that happened, so we have God asking me, would you rather have hundreds of millions of dollars or have understood this all about the Christian life? And then this guy asked me for money, and then I didn't have the money. And then, it was just, and then all of this, it was really a crazy experience. A lot of tears that week, and it was not so much and I was really shocked at how people kept talking about me. Like this author goes from obscurity to New York Times #1 bestseller. And then I guess I realized, that is kind of the American dream. Like people want this sort of success. I kept thinking like, this is not about me. Like, what is this like, I'm just kind of like a messenger. You don't even have to read Inner Excellence. This is 2,000 years of things that I've collected of, this wisdom. And I just want people to learn that, selfless is fearless. And that if you pursue this life where you have a purpose beyond yourself, you can have that fearlessness. And so, yeah, everything is very different now. I signed with United Talent Agency a week later, and there was an auction for the book. 14 publishers came and presented, and we did an auction in the UK, and so yeah, it's been an incredible experience, and I'm super grateful. So my routines have been a little bit adjusted. And so, like, I just came here late. Thank you for your patience, from the Hachette Studios audio recording. Like that took me 3 years to record the audio for that book. This was during COVID, started off in COVID, and then I didn't have a place to record, and it was just a challenge. And then I get to the Hachette Studios here in New York City, and I have an audio engineer there with me the whole time in this fancy studio. And I was like, so I just came from there narrating the new version, or an updated version of this book. And so, but what do I do? Like when I wake up, the first thing I wake up is I point to heaven and I say, Father, I belong to you. It's like I give everything to you.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you my normal routine. It's, if I'm home, like I was home in Seattle, I have a place in Seattle. I was there for one full day in the last probably 3 months. Mm-hmm. So I got home for one day, and then, but my routine I would go into the kitchen and I would fill up my water bottle. I have a water bottle that's kind of funny. It's my whole water for the day, so I can make sure that I get my hydration. And I put in the electrolytes in it, and then I get my ice water. I do this ice water immersion for my face.
Yep.
And so I do that in the morning, and then go turn on the sauna, and then we have sauna, cold plunge, and red light therapy in the gym. And so get that heated up, and then I go into my room. Oh, and I turn on the morning playlist. Everyone should have a morning playlist.
Tell us the morning. I'm all about music. Tell us about the morning playlist.
Music is so important. It has such an impact on how you feel, because our actions largely stem from how we feel. And we want to make sure those feelings line up with our purpose. And we want to make sure our music lines up with our purpose. And I noticed years ago, when I listened to a certain type of music, that I would feel a certain way. And that way was like, I feel like I'm missing out. It was like, it would get me kind of amped up, and like, I'm missing out. I need to go meet girls and go be, I got to go play. And so I realized that that's what I was feeling. And it wasn't a feeling that was peaceful.
Yes.
And And then I listened to this other music, and I would feel this peace. And I started to know, and that's what I want everyone to realize, is that the music that you listen to has a huge impact. So there's two things. It impacts how you feel, and it impacts your beliefs and your heart, which is the bigger thing. Your heart is what's running your life and your subconscious. And so we want to make sure that we have words and rhythms and music that are empowering you towards your purpose. And so every day we want to wake up thinking about our purpose. And so, I have this, after that, I go into my room, I have this what's called a happy light. And so we want to get sunshine on our face.
Yes.
The first, before 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. ideally like an hour. And if you live in Seattle or in Vancouver, then it might be hard sometimes, especially in the winter. So then you can get a happy light and it's fine. You can get them on Amazon for like $80. And so I sit on the floor, I'm doing this stretching, and I got the happy light right in front of my face. And then I put on the 10-minute timer on my phone, countdown timer, make sure it's going, set that off to the side. And then I put on this Christian music, and I'm just going to soak up God's love. And the purpose is just to soak up God's love, because what happens if our greatest need is to be fully known and fully loved. Love is our greatest need. It's our unconditional love is our greatest need, our greatest power, and our greatest desire. And so, because love is fearless. And so if you're not feeling loved, you're going to spend your whole life trying to feel it. And you're going to try and feel it through possessions, achievements, looks, money, status. And because that's going to get other people to like, oh, we love you, Jim. You're somebody.
Attention.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so that's what most people do. That's the trap most people do, is they're trying to get it. And that's the trap I've fallen into most of my life, is trying to get that better feeling, that love, through these achievements. And it's a chase your tail, endless emptiness that never satisfies. It's if it does satisfy, it's very, very brief. Yeah. And so that's why we want to have that purpose that directs us to something powerful and permanent.
One of my favorite things that I do in the morning is it was a few years ago. It was over the holiday break. I was in the UK, and I just had such a great time. My partner and I, Josh, have been together for like 22 years, and we were listening, and it was like the BBC Radio 3, and it was all classical music. And oftentimes they do this beautiful thing where they inject different recordings of local birds. And so you'll hear these bird songs. And for me, it's like that connection with nature is everything. And so in the mornings, I often like to have my coffee and listen to the BBC Radio 3, because you can just do it on an app. And so there's the most sublime classical music and bird songs. And even sometimes if it's just 15 minutes, but I find myself, my heart is open. I'm thinking and in a realm that is super playful and ethereal, and you know what I mean? And really connected. I'm telling you, it's so fun.
Thank you.
And then of course, for me, I just like when we were talking about the phone, that I'm kind of, my team and my friends often laugh at me. They're like, oh my God, did you see X, Y, or Z happened? That's like social media related or something that's trending. I'm like, dude, I'm living like it's in the 90s. Like that's like my happy place. I just don't pay attention to a lot of things, because I find that I feel my best and I perform at my best, and I'm most loving when I don't have a lot of those inputs. And, but the BBC does often share like a few news headlines, and the world is intense right now and there's a lot happening. And I always joke, I'm like, but it sounds better in a British accent. You know what I mean? Like sometimes it doesn't get into then they'll just state it and there's an accent, and I'm like, okay, and now we're hearing Chopin. It's great. But I love that. Another question for you. If you could put a single sentence on a billboard for every driven, burned out high performer to read, what might it say? And don't feel like you have to get it right. This can be a first draft of something.
I think in order for people to remember something, it has to be simple. And so I would probably say selfless is fearless.
I love that. I love that. If somebody listening right now wants to break free from decades of identity, like based on performance, or feeling like they have to people please or they have to prove, again, I know we have an amazing book and I hope everyone does read it, but what do you think the first step might be for them to start to break that pattern in themselves?
I'm guessing that I'm not alone, and there's a lot of people that their phone is really impacting their life. And what I noticed, like I said, it was tumbling my heart, grabbing my imagination. And so you can think about those three questions you asked earlier, like, where's my heart? Like, what do I dream about? What do I think about? What do I worry about? And like I was thinking about, so I have this workbook, the Inner Excellence workbook. My deadline is August 15th. So that'll be coming out probably 2026. And so I told my team, I said, here's something that I've thought of that's a practice, an exercise that everyone can try that we might put in the workbook. And it's, can you go through the whole day and not say anything negative? It's kind of simple directive, but it's really hard. And because we live in a world that's filled with a lot of fear and anxiety and negativity. And if you focus on what you can't control and what you're afraid of, you're going to have more of it. You're going to have more of that fear. And so it's so important to focus on, to start clarifying, well, what is the purpose of my life? And you can think about, we have an Inner Excellence retreat coming up actually now, April 24th to 28th with Youth with a Mission, where we're building a house for a family in Mexico.
Beautiful.
And in that, everyone that comes, we're going to clarify their life purpose. And I'm going to ask them, how do you want to feel in your life? And that's something that we don't want to be led around by feelings, but we want to be able to recognize them and understand, when I'm at my best, what does it feel like? And what adds to it and what takes away from that? And then how do I want to live? Like, how do I want to handle negativity and when life is tough? What kind of person do I want to become? And what do I value most? And so then we're going to narrow that down into a life purpose that can help you reduce some of those anxious thoughts, because now if you have a purpose beyond yourself, then you can start to do that. And realizing that selfless is fearless can be helpful.
Jim, thank you so much for making the time. Congratulations. I'm so excited for you. It sounds like a very exciting new chapter in your journey. I really appreciate your work, and I'm excited to see what comes next. So thank you.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been so great to be here with you and learn from you. Thank you.
Hey, if you loved this video, you need to watch this one next. Trust me on that.